Pull over right now. The command from the passenger seat cut through the hum of the air conditioning like a lightning bolt. Through the tinted windows of her white Mercedes, Whitney Houston was staring at something that made her forget she was already 30 minutes late for her interview at MTV's Times Square studio. On the bustling steps of New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, a young girl was singing with a voice that seemed to channel heaven itself. And what Whitney witnessed in the next few minutes would shatter everything she thought she knew about discovering raw talent. If you've ever felt the pressure of carrying your family's dreams on your shoulders, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments below. This story will remind you why some voices are meant to change the world. It was a sweltering August afternoon in 1995, the kind of day when the concrete seemed to shimmer with heat waves, and 14-year-old Keisha Washington was setting up her usual spot on the worn stone steps of the church, where her grandmother had sung in the choir for 47 years. The small cardboard box she'd been using for donations was held together with masking tape, and her secondhand dress, a pale blue cotton number from the Goodwill, had been carefully pressed by her mother that morning. Her scuffed Mary Jane shoes were a size too small, inherited from a neighbor whose daughter had outgrown them. But none of that mattered when Keisha opened her mouth to sing. Keisha had been coming to these exact church steps every Saturday for 6 months, ever since that devastating day when her mother, Denise, received the pink slip from the hospital where she'd worked as a nurse's aide for 8 years. Budget cuts had eliminated her position, along with dozens of others, leaving families like the Washingtons struggling to keep their heads above water. With her father completely absent since Keisha was 9, and 2 younger brothers at home, Marcus, 11, and little David, just 7, every single dollar Keisha earned from street singing went straight into the family's emergency fund and helped pay the rent on their cramped 3-bedroom apartment in Newark's Central Ward. Her mother, Denise, worked double shifts at a nursing home across town, earning barely above minimum wage while caring for elderly residents from 6 in the morning until 10 at night. She left before dawn and returned home exhausted, trusting Keisha to watch over her younger brothers and help with homework. Denise had no idea that her eldest daughter was spending her Saturdays performing for strangers on church steps, risking getting in trouble with authorities or worse. If she knew, she'd probably ground Keisha until she graduated high school. But Keisha couldn't help herself. Singing wasn't just a hobby or a way to make money. It was the only thing that made her feel connected to something larger than their daily struggles. The only escape from the crushing weight of responsibility that sat on her 14-year-old shoulders like a backpack full of bricks. Music was her sanctuary, her prayer, and her hope all rolled into one. As she carefully placed her battery-powered boombox on the church steps, Keisha took a deep breath and looked around at the familiar chaos of downtown Newark. Street vendors hawked bootleg CDs and homemade jewelry. Church ladies in their Saturday best hurried past carrying grocery bags. Kids on bikes weaved through pedestrians, and the constant stream of traffic created a symphony of urban sounds that had become the soundtrack to her weekend performances. Today felt different somehow. The crowd seemed more responsive. The sun was hitting the church facade at just the right angle, creating perfect acoustics, and Keisha had been practicing a new arrangement of Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All that she couldn't wait to debut. She'd spent hours in their tiny bathroom, the only space in their apartment where she could sing without waking the neighbors, perfecting each run and riff while listening to Whitney's albums on repeat through her headphones. As the opening piano notes of Greatest Love of All began playing through her speaker, Keisha closed her eyes and let the music wash over her like a warm embrace. She'd studied every single Whitney Houston performance she could find on TV, analyzing the way the voice built emotion, how she used her hands to convey meaning, the precise timing of each vocal run that had made her the greatest singer of her generation. But something magical happened when Keisha started singing. The shy girl who got nervous speaking up in class, who preferred to blend into the background at school, who sometimes stuttered when ordering food at the corner store, completely disappeared. In her place emerged a vocalist who commanded attention, who could make time stop and hearts break with nothing but her voice and soul. Her voice soared over the church steps like a prayer made audible, pure, powerful, and filled with an emotional depth that seemed impossible from someone so young. The opening lines of "I believe the children are our future" carried such conviction, such hope, that passers-by stopped mid-stride to locate the source of this incredible sound. A crowd began forming on the sidewalk. Office workers on their lunch breaks found themselves pausing, their sandwiches forgotten, as they became mesmerized by the girl who sang like her life depended on it. Church members coming and going stopped to listen, recognizing something special in this young voice. Tourists snapped photos, and several people started dropping bills into her cardboard box. But 8 blocks away, stuck in the typical Newark traffic that moved like molasses, Whitney Houston was getting increasingly frustrated. She was already late for a crucial MTV interview that would help promote her upcoming album, and the gridlock seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of her convoy. Her assistant Robin was making frantic phone calls to the network, trying to buy them more time. That's when Whitney heard something that made her heart skip a beat. Her own song, but performed with a passion and soul that cut through the noise of the city like a diamond cutting glass. The sound was coming from somewhere ahead, carried on the summer breeze, and it reminded her instantly of why she'd fallen in love with singing in the first place. "Wait a minute," Whitney said, pressing her face against the tinted window and trying to locate the source of the music. "Stop the car. Right now." "Miss Houston, we're already running behind schedule," her driver Marcus cautioned gently. "The MTV folks are expecting us in 20 minutes. Whitney squinted through the heat waves rising from the asphalt, trying to get a better look at the growing crowd gathered around the church steps. Even from this distance, she could hear that something extraordinary was happening. That voice, young, untrained, but filled with a spiritual power that you couldn't teach in any music school, was calling to her. "I need to see this," Whitney whispered, her hand already moving toward the door handle. "Whitney, maybe we should keep moving," Robin suggested, glancing nervously at the crowd. "There's already a lot of people there, and if they recognize you, things could get complicated pretty quickly." Whitney looked at her assistant with those expressive eyes that had captivated audiences for over a decade. "Robin, that child is singing my song better than I do. Sometimes God puts you exactly where you're supposed to be, even when you think you should be somewhere else." Meanwhile, Keisha was deep into the second verse, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each line. The crowd had swelled to over 50 people, and she was so completely absorbed in the music that she didn't notice the white Mercedes that had pulled over at the edge of the gathering, or the woman in oversized sunglasses who was now standing at the back of the audience, listening with growing amazement. The whispers started slowly, rippling through the crowd like waves. "Is that? No way. Someone's recording this. That's really her. Whitney Houston is here. Should we say something? Don't scare her away." But Whitney's attention was completely fixed on Keisha. The way the girl sang reminded her powerfully of herself at that age. Performing in her mother Sissy's church, feeling the Holy Spirit move through her voice, understanding instinctively that singing was both a gift and a calling. This child had something special, something that couldn't be manufactured by record labels or polished in studios. This was raw talent, blessed and unfiltered. As Greatest Love of All reached its soaring climax, Keisha launched into the most challenging part of the song, the series of runs and riffs that had made Whitney famous. Her 14-year-old voice navigated the complex melody with stunning precision, hitting notes that would challenge professional singers. The crowd held its collective breath as this young artist pushed herself to vocal limits that most singers spent years learning to reach. When the final notes faded and the last echo bounced off the church walls, Keisha opened her eyes and struck a pose she'd practiced countless times in her bedroom mirror. One hand on her heart, the other extended toward heaven, her face lifted upward in gratitude. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, phones recording from every angle, voices shouting praise and encouragement. Money began flying into Keisha's cardboard box. Quarters, dollar bills, even a few 20s from people who had just witnessed something they'd never forget. But when Keisha's eyes swept across the audience to acknowledge their appreciation, her entire world stopped spinning. Standing there at the back of the crowd, wearing dark sunglasses and that unmistakable smile that had graced 1,000 magazine covers, was Whitney Houston herself. Not a look-alike, not someone dressed up for Halloween, but the actual, real, living legend. "Oh my God," Keisha breathed, her voice barely audible over the continued cheering. "This can't be real." This isn't happening. Her knees started to shake, and for a moment she thought she might collapse right there on the church steps. The girl who had just performed with the confidence of a seasoned professional suddenly felt like what she was, a 14-year-old kid from Newark who was face to face with her biggest hero. Whitney stepped forward slowly, carefully navigating through the crowd that was now buzzing with excitement and recognition. She removed her sunglasses with deliberate ceremony, revealing those famous eyes that had moved millions to tears, and flashed that radiant smile that could light up entire concert halls. "That was absolutely incredible, sweetheart," Whitney said, her voice carrying clearly over the crowd noise. "Where in the world did you learn to sing like that?" Keisha's knees nearly buckled. The Whitney Houston, the Whitney Houston, the voice, the greatest singer of her generation, her absolute idol, was not only talking to her, but complimenting her singing. This had to be a dream. In a few minutes, she'd wake up on the couch in their tiny apartment, and none of this would have happened. I, I listen to your albums every single day, Miss Houston," Keisha stammered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I practice in my bedroom, in the bathroom, anywhere I can find space. My mom thinks I'm crazy for singing the same songs over and over for hours." The crowd pressed closer, everyone wanting to witness this magical moment unfold. Several people were discreetly filming, understanding they were documenting something special. But Whitney waved gently for space, creating an intimate bubble around herself and Keisha, despite the chaos. "What's your name, baby?" Whitney asked, kneeling down to Keisha's eye level so they could speak more personally. "Keisha Washington, ma'am. I'm 14 years old, and you're everything to me. You're the reason I sing. You're the reason I believe my voice matters." Whitney's eyes glistened with genuine emotion. This girl reminded her so powerfully of herself at that age. The church background, the family struggles, the understanding that singing was both escape and calling. But more than that, she could hear something in Keisha's voice that she recognized from her own childhood. The anointing, the gift that couldn't be taught or manufactured. "Keisha," Whitney said softly, reaching into her designer purse, "I want you to have something very special." The crowd fell silent as Whitney pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. It was her personal songwriting journal, filled with lyrics and musical notes in her own handwriting. The book was worn from use, its pages yellowed with age, and it seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight. The collective gasp from the crowd was audible. People were frantically taking photos and videos, realizing they were witnessing a moment that would become part of music history. "This notebook has been with me since I was 16, Whitney continued, placing it gently in Keisha's trembling hands. "Every song idea, every melody that came to me, I wrote it down in here first. But I think it belongs with someone who truly understands what it means to sing from the soul. Someone who reminds me why I fell in love with music in the first place." Keisha stared at the notebook in complete disbelief, tears streaming down her face. She'd seen Whitney write in similar notebooks during interviews, had dreamed of having her own songbook someday, and now she was holding Whitney's actual journal, real and tangible and impossible. "I can't take this, Miss Houston," Keisha whispered. "It's too precious. It has all your secrets in it. Music is meant to be shared from one generation to the next, Keisha. Talent like yours is meant to be nurtured and celebrated. Promise me you'll fill every page with your own songs, your own stories, your own truth." Then Whitney's face lit up with sudden inspiration, that spark of creativity that had driven her to become the most awarded female artist of all time. "You know what? Let's do this together. Would you like to sing with me right here, right now?" The crowd went absolutely wild. This was beyond anything anyone could have imagined when they woke up that morning. Phones were recording from every angle. People were calling friends and family. Word was spreading rapidly through the neighborhood that something unprecedented was happening on the steps of New Hope Baptist Church. Keisha nodded eagerly, unable to form words. This was the moment every young singer dreamed of, the chance to perform alongside their idol, to harmonize with greatness itself. Whitney signaled to her assistant, who quickly retrieved a wireless microphone from their car. The crowd made room, forming a large semicircle around the church steps as anticipation reached a fever pitch. "Let's give these people something they'll never forget," Whitney said with that mischievous twinkle her fans knew and loved. The same twinkle that had launched 1,000 dreams and inspired millions of people around the world. As the opening notes of I Will Always Love You began playing from Keisha's boombox, something truly magical happened. Whitney Houston, the voice of a generation, and Keisha Washington, a street singer with a dream, began performing together on the steps of a Newark church. The transformation was immediate and breathtaking. Keisha, who moments before had been nervous and starstruck, found her confidence again as Whitney's presence gave her permission to soar. She harmonized with her idol perfectly, her young voice blending with Whitney's legendary instrument in ways that seemed divinely orchestrated. When Whitney sang the opening verse, Keisha provided ethereal background vocals that seemed to lift the entire performance into another dimension. When it came time for the chorus, they sang together in perfect harmony, two voices becoming one voice, creating something new and beautiful that neither could have achieved alone. The crowd swelled to over 200 people. Cars slowed down as drivers strained to see what was happening. Even the Newark police officers who arrived to manage the growing assembly found themselves listening in awe rather than dispersing what was technically an unlawful gathering. For 4 minutes and 37 seconds, there was no superstar and no street performer. There was no difference in age, fame, or bank account. There were just two voices lifted in song, connected by the universal language of music, sharing their gift with a community that desperately needed hope. When the final note faded into silence, the applause was thunderous and sustained, echoing off the church walls and seeming to shake the very ground beneath their feet. People were crying, cheering, and frantically posting videos that would be viewed millions of times within hours. Whitney put her arm around Keisha's shoulder and addressed the crowd with the same grace and presence she brought to sold-out arenas around the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice carrying clearly over the noise, "you have just witnessed something truly special. This young lady has reminded me why I became a singer in the first place. She's shown me that talent, faith, and dedication know no boundaries. Remember the name Keisha Washington. Mark my words, you're going to be hearing it again." The crowd erupted again, chanting Keisha's name as if she were already a star. But Whitney wasn't finished. She turned back to Keisha and spoke quietly, away from the cameras and the noise, her words meant for the girl's ears alone. "I'm going to give you my manager's personal phone number," Whitney said, pulling out a business card and writing something on the back. "We're going to make sure you get the professional training and opportunities you deserve. Talent like yours shouldn't be performing on church steps. It should be blessing the world from the biggest stages." 2 years later, Keisha Washington stood in the legendary recording studio where Whitney had recorded some of her biggest hits, working with producers who had shaped the careers of the most successful artists in music. Whitney Houston had been true to her word in every possible way. Not only had she arranged for Keisha to receive professional vocal training at the most prestigious music academy in New York, but she had also established a full scholarship fund to cover the girl's education through college. Denise Washington, who had been working double shifts just to keep food on the table, was able to cut back to one job after Whitney quietly arranged for ongoing financial support for the family. They moved out of their cramped Newark apartment into a beautiful house in East Orange, where the boys could have their own rooms and study in peace. But perhaps most importantly, Keisha never forgot the lessons from that life-changing August afternoon on the church steps. The importance of staying humble, of working hard, of never giving up on your dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. Today, Keisha Washington Jones is a Grammy-nominated recording artist and inspirational speaker, using her platform to mentor young singers from underserved communities. Her debut album, Church Steps, debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts. In her home studio, she keeps Whitney's notebook in a place of honor, not as a museum piece gathering dust, but as a daily reminder of the moment when recognition and kindness changed her life forever. Every Saturday, without fail, she returns to the steps of New Hope Baptist Church, teaching voice lessons to kids who remind her of herself, children from struggling families, kids who sing because they have to, not because they want to. She always tells them the same thing Whitney told her that day: sing from your heart, practice every single day, and never give up on your dreams. You never know who might be listening. The video of their impromptu performance has been viewed over 200 million times across various platforms, inspiring countless young singers around the world. But for Keisha, the real magic wasn't captured on any camera. It was that moment when her hero looked into her eyes and saw not just a street performer trying to make a few dollars, but an artist worthy of respect, investment, and belief. Some encounters change lives in ways that ripple out for generations. Some moments transcend ordinary experience and become the stuff of legend. And sometimes when the music is right and hearts are open, miracles happen exactly where you least expect them to. On the steps of a neighborhood church in Newark, between a superstar at the height of her fame and a girl with nothing but a voice and a dream, destiny made its move. This story serves as a powerful reminder that talent can emerge from anywhere, that kindness has the power to transform not just individual lives, but entire families, and that music truly is the language that connects us all across every barrier and boundary. Because sometimes the most important performances don't happen on grand stages in front of thousands of screaming fans. Sometimes they happen on ordinary church steps where dreams are waiting to be discovered and lives are ready to be changed forever. All it takes is someone willing to stop, to listen, and to believe in the power of possibility.